If you have an Etsy shop and you're not getting the traffic and sales that you expected, there's a good chance your SEO is the missing piece. And I don't mean you need to go fix your tags right now. I mean, you need to understand what SEO is and how it works on Etsy. Hi, I'm Sarah, and I help Etsy sellers get consistent sales through search visibility. Today, we're going to go back to the basics: what SEO is, why it matters, and what it's actually made up of so you can start building something that works. Because I constantly see sellers that are doing stuff to their listings without understanding why or what their goal is, and then wondering why they're not getting more traffic. Understanding what SEO is first changes the way you think about your shop. And if you want to understand the full visibility framework, I'm hosting a free live masterclass. The link to sign up and save your seat is in the description. So let's talk about what SEO actually is, because most sellers hop onto the platform, create a few listings, and then just assume people will find it, like Etsy owes you traffic. And when that doesn't work, they start to hear things like, you need to fix your SEO. But nobody really explains to them what that is and why it matters, at least in a way that actually makes sense. So tell me if this sounds familiar. Next, sellers kind of start poking at their tags and titles. Maybe you purchased a keyword research tool and you're just kind of hoping something sticks. And when it doesn't, you might assume your niche is too competitive or that your products aren't good enough. But the real problem is that you're trying to optimize something that you don't fully understand yet. So SEO stands for search engine optimization. It's how Etsy decides where you should show up in buyers' searches. And I want you to remember with this that Etsy is a search engine, one with over 100 million active buyers coming to purchase something every year. And they're specifically searching for products to buy. This is really different compared to Instagram, social media, Pinterest, where people are planning or they're just trying to catch up with their friends. So when a buyer types something into the search bar, Etsy is actively running through all its inventory, all of the listings, to decide what is relevant for that search. It needs to decide what listings to show in what order, because not everybody can be on page one. SEO is the work that you do to make sure your listings are the ones that are showing up. It's the process of making your listings visible to buyers who are already looking for what you sell. That is the most important thing to understand about SEO on Etsy. The buyers are already there. They're already searching for what you make. The question is whether Etsy knows to show your listings to them or your competitors. And SEO is the answer to that question. So search happens in two specific phases. The first is query matching. And that's when Etsy looks at all the listings on the platform and they're kind of pulling everything that matches what the buyer searched. Then we move to ranking. And that's when Etsy takes all of those listings and decides what order to show them in. Query matching is largely driven by your keywords. Those are the words in your tags, your titles, your attributes, your descriptions. If a buyer searches for personalized gift for mom and none of those words appear anywhere in your search, you're not very likely to show up for those searches. Ranking is where it gets a little more interesting. Etsy's goal is to put the listings that buyers are more likely to purchase on page one. So it uses a variety of factors to decide who should be on top. Those are things like your listing quality score, your conversion rate, past histories, past reviews of your products. Even your shipping costs and customer service metrics play a role. And Etsy wants to factor all of this stuff into the equation because they make money when buyers make purchases. So the point of all of this is that SEO is not just one thing. It is a combination of signals that Etsy uses to decide whether your listing is a good fit for a particular buyer search. So what does SEO actually include? Here's kind of a high-level description of everything that's in play when it comes to this algorithm. First, your keywords are your foundation. The words and phrases in your listings are what Etsy is using to match your products to buyer searches. Using the right keywords, which means ones that Etsy buyers are actually searching for and that you have a realistic chance of ranking for, is what gets you in that pool of matching results in the first place. And then your listing quality score is one of the big things that helps Etsy determine where to rank you in that big pool of listings. That score is built over time through things like your sales history, your conversion rate, and your review history. A new listing with no sales history starts at a neutral score and then works its way either up or down from there based on how buyers interact with it. There are some shop level factors that matter as well. Things like having a completed about section and keeping your shipping cost reasonable are all factors. And then the thing that doesn't get talked about enough, which is the depth of your product lines. When you have multiple listings all built around the same keywords, Etsy sees you as more of an authority for those keywords and they're more likely to test you for them. If you want to think of one listing as kind of a hint to Etsy as to which keywords you want to get found for, a full, built out, in-depth, elevated product line is what makes you an authority and makes Etsy take more notice of the bigger signal you're giving them. So that's what SEO is really at the shop level. It's not just a checklist of things to fix in one listing. It's really kind of a body of information that you are sending to Etsy to let them know that you are trustworthy and that they should send buyers your way. And I do want to go back to the listing quality score for just a second here, because this is not something that you can just find in your shop manager. This is an internal score that you do not have access to. But we do know the factors that are involved in this, and so I want to run through those for you because it's really important when Etsy is trying to determine who's going to rank on page 1 and who's going to be buried on page 12. Relevancy is the starting point here. This is how closely the words in your tags, your titles, your descriptions, your attributes all matched what the buyer searched for. The closer the match, the more relevant you are for that particular search. Listing engagement rate is another important factor. Here, Etsy's looking at a combination of clicks, views, favorites, and purchases to determine how well that listing is performing and how likely it is to convert when they show it to a buyer. A listing that people are clicking on and saving, maybe adding to cart, is more likely to get additional clicks, saves, and purchases. So Etsy's going to want to show that to more people. A listing that gets ignored, on the other hand, is going to tell Etsy the opposite. Now, recency does play a small role as well, but I do not want you to overestimate how important this is. When you publish a new listing, Etsy does give it a temporary boost. And this is really so that Etsy can kind of collect that data on what buyers are interested in that particular listing. They want to know as quickly as possible how buyers might interact with it. Now, this is not a huge boost and it does not last long. And Etsy themselves has come out and said that renewing listings to get this boost is not a viable long-term strategy. So this is something that I want you to just be aware of, but not build a strategy around. And then I want you to think about the overall quality of your shop. So this includes things like, does your shop have an icon? Do you have a profile picture? Is your about section filled out? Do you have a shop banner? Are your policies in place? Etsy wants buyers to feel confident about making a purchase. So if your shop looks incomplete, that is going to be friction for them. And that's going to work against you when it comes to ranking. I want to talk about 2 more things when it comes to your listing quality score and your overall shop quality, and that is customer service and shipping prices. We're going to start with customer service first. As you can tell from your customer service dashboard, Etsy looks at certain metrics when it comes to your customer service. So your reviews, how quickly you answer messages, that type of stuff plays a role in how you rank. Because again, this is about trust. Etsy wants to know they can trust you to take care of their buyers. If you've had a case opened against you, or if you are shipping your orders late, that can hurt you in search as well. And then we're going to talk about everybody's favorite, which is shipping prices. Now look, I know providing free shipping is not easy for everybody, but Etsy pushes it for a reason, and that's because it works. Etsy does prioritize listings that either have free shipping, use a free shipping guarantee, or that have shipping costs under $6. And this is because their data shows that high shipping costs do reduce purchases. Now, the takeaway from all of this is that there are a variety of factors when it comes to how you rank in search. It's not just about having the perfect keywords. Think about it more as having a listing that Etsy believes will convert and that buyers can trust. Now I want to talk about what happens when Etsy tests your listing, because this is a phase that sellers will often get very frustrated by, and they're tempted to quit during this phase, and it's one of the biggest mistakes that you can make. When you publish a listing, Etsy does not immediately decide where it should rank in searches. Instead, it's going to start by testing it. You can even think of a new listing as kind of risky, right? Because Etsy doesn't have any proof that buyers are happy with that purchase. So Etsy might show your listing to a small number of buyers at a time. They're going to look, do they click on this listing when they see it in search? Do they add it to cart? Do they favorite it or save it for later? Do they purchase it? Even after purchase, do they leave a review? Is it a positive review? And based off these signals, Etsy can decide a little bit more about what they should do with that listing in the future. If the listing is performing well, maybe you have a great conversion rate, you've gotten some good reviews, Etsy is going to start to show it to more and more people. They might start testing it even for more competitive and saturated searches. During this time, you're going to see your rankings move very frequently, And that's totally normal. I will have a lot of sellers get frustrated because maybe they're ranking on page 1 one day and page 10 the next. But that is normal, and it does not mean that the listing is not going to work for you. And this is why SEO takes time. I need you to know that slow results are not no results. Etsy can take anywhere from 30 to 90 days to make some final decisions on where your listing should rank, because Etsy wants that real buyer behavior, that real data on how your listing is going to perform. And collecting that data can take time, especially with handmade products. The problem is that so many sellers don't know this. So you might update your tags and titles after 2 weeks, and that can reset the whole process, which means that Etsy has to start testing you all over again. So this becomes one of the worst ways that sellers really sabotage their own growth on the platform. So understanding how Etsy SEO works and why it works the way it does can help you, because it's going to make you more strategic with your listings. When you know that Etsy needs this time, they might need 30 to 60 to 90 days. You stop making changes because you're anxious that something's not working. And you're going to start making decisions based off actual data. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel, because unlike a post on social media or running ads, Etsy SEO compounds over time. When you get it right, a listing will earn its ranking, and it keeps that traffic month after month. You do not have to constantly create content or new listings when you get to that phase. So that is what makes organic search so valuable on Etsy. It is super consistent in a way that social media never is. And it's why you're so much more likely to get consistent daily sales on the platform when you have this figured out than you are if you spend your time on social. So next, I want to hear from you. Drop me a comment and tell me what's been the hardest part of SEO on Etsy for you. I really want to hear from you. If this gave you a clearer picture on what Etsy search is and why it's so important, I want to make sure that you save your seat for my next live free masterclass. I'm going to walk you through the complete visibility framework that helps you get consistent daily sales on Etsy through organic search traffic. You're going to get personalized feedback on your questions and leave with a very clear picture of what you should be doing next. Spots are limited, so I want to make sure that you save your seat before they fill up. And some parting words of wisdom for you here. The work of making sure that Etsy can understand and see your shop like this is so important. When you build your foundation the right way, you will be rewarded for it with traffic, with consistent sales. So make sure that you subscribe so you do not miss additional videos. And if you found this helpful, be sure to share with an Etsy seller that needs it.